First of all, what sort of calls are you getting into your office at the moment from your constituents?
Well, we're getting a lot of inbound calls from small businesses who have been very badly impacted and want to know what sort of package is being assembled to help them out. There's also people calling, trying to get vaccinated and wanting additional information on how to make that happen. But our outbound calls have been particularly interesting compared to this time last year or 18 months ago. I mean, initially our outbound calls were to older people who were hungry for information, who were very scared and concerned. I find that our outbound calls to people are scared and concerned and wanting information about vaccination regardless of their age, actually. That's sort of the general tenor that's going on throughout our suburbs.
So what sort of help do you think is needed for these businesses? Because, you've got to assume that this lockdown is going to be extended. Epidemiologists, quite a number of them, have said on our show and various shows over the past couple of days that at least another 4 weeks of lockdown is going to be required here.
Well, I'm afraid all of us are expecting the worst in this situation, unfortunately. And that assistance, I think, needs to go to not only small businesses who are employers, but there's a large number of sole traders out there who were small businesses. And some of them are not just in retail, a lot of them are service providers. So I think it needs to be whatever combination of wage subsidy to keep those businesses connected to their employees, but also people who are sole traders who have lost their livelihoods. And you think of people in the services sector who are in events, everything from events management to people who work in gyms or are contracted to gyms or places that are just closed now. And it is a really terrifying situation for them.
I spoke to your colleague, Ed Husic, on our show last Friday, and he talked about a double standard that he was seeing in his electorate and parts of Western Sydney when it comes to the police crackdown, that he believed was different to what, say, suburbs in the east of Sydney were experiencing. Do you share those same views from where you are?
Well, I think we saw the activities that were happening, and by the way, no one is disputing the need for the New South Wales Police Force, and thank them for doing a great job. But I think the double standard perceptions are, well, when all this was happening initially in the eastern suburbs, we didn't see 30 police cars out on the street. And, in hindsight, would that have been something that could have contained the outbreak? Who knows? But all we saw was, there were beach scenes there that looked like
they were there. I mean, you'll remember early on in the outbreak and in the pandemic that police were moving people away. They were driving their cars up to people in the east, sitting in a park and moving them on. And remember, at the time, people thought that was over the top. So do you believe that that's not the case now?
Look, I think in part of this, perception is everything. But I think that the police spokesperson who has been, Mr. Warboys, who's been going out there, I think said it quite eloquently, which is we all want to work together. And I think that was a very important message that was being sent, look, not only through community leaders, but also people want to do the right thing. I think that is something that needs to be emphasised. And I think when the tone of the Chief Medical Officer and Mr. Warboys, I think it has changed in the last few days. And I think that people have been taking much more notice of that and realising, look, this is actually serious. And when you see those numbers, when you see the numbers of people in ICU, you see the ages of those people and also death, I think that drives it home to people that we all are in this together and we all have to do our part.
Yeah, and those numbers now in western parts of Sydney certainly taking off, a huge amount of concern there. Not just for today, but the coming days and weeks ahead. What do you make of the ads that were rolled out yesterday, Michelle?
Well, again, I think it's important to emphasise that this is a serious disease and it can be fatal. And it appears, particularly with the Delta strain, it is fatal for potentially fatal for people who are younger. I think initially we're getting into this view that this was something that affected older people, but I think that it does emphasise that this can affect everyone. But the other thing I note is this doesn't increase the supply of vaccines. And that is one of the key issues here. You know, I was on this program 2 weeks ago trying to get an appointment to be vaccinated. I finally got an appointment for tomorrow for my first jab, and that's not through want of trying. So for all those ads, it is not increasing the supply of vaccines. And that needs to be the number one priority of Scott Morrison at the moment, because we were always told that vaccination rates were the key to getting back to normality. We heard that the other day from the New South Wales press conferences yet again, and we don't have enough supply to be able to achieve that.
Okay, Michelle Rowland, we're out of time. Appreciate your time this morning, though. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.